Yo, what's up guys, Tuna here. Today's video I'm going to show off a build I've been playing for the last few days. That's the Poison Burst Arrow Pathfinder. This build is really good at clearing maps. It has sort of a really good clear in that it scales multiplicatively with pack size due to some mechanics that allow poisons to both spread, and Bursting Plague, which is a support that allows for when an enemy dies with the plague, it just bursts and it deals damage to enemies near it, which then in turn poisons them, and then it creates some sort of a cascading reaction. This is really good for the currently mechanic, obviously, Abyss, because there's so many monsters that sort of spawn all close packed together. But it's also really insane for Breach, which incidentally are, both the best mechanics in the game for making currency and stuff like that. So this part here, you'll see when the monsters all come, they just all sort of like burst because of Bursting Plague and all that kind of stuff. This build just has really good map clear. It's very cozy to play as well in that you're playing it on the Roa, and because of a mechanic, you will never get knocked off the Roa. We'll talk about that a little later once we go deeper into the mechanics of the build. However, the single target is not insane. Now, I've done Zesh 4 with this build. It's fine. It's not going to be one of those like one-shot builds that you're seeing, but the effort is more put into making it as comfortable as possible during maps, and relatively tanky so that you're not dying every second map, right? That's the idea. I'm still working on getting it to a stage where I think it's perfect or something like close to perfect, but I think it's pretty good. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to show you guys why I think it's pretty good and what it does well and all the mechanics involved. So far, I've sort of been struggling to find something that I really enjoy in this game, but I think this build comes very close to it because it has many of the qualities that I like. Very good clear. It's comfortable. I can look away from my monitor for a few seconds without dying, and it doesn't necessarily need any sort of like crazy mechanical expertise in order to just clear maps. But when you do come across a boss or something like that, that's when you can, incorporate your multi-button rotation to deal more damage and that sort of stuff. So it has a bit of it all. So the main two reasons why the clear is so good on this character is because we're using the Bursting Plague support in combination with the Contagious Contamination Ascendancy notable from the Pathfinder. What happens here is that your most damaging poison on enemies is spread to other enemies within 1.5 meters. And Bursting Plague has a similar effect in that the skills trigger when an enemy dies with a plague on it, and the burst radius is 1.8 meters, and this deals physical damage equals to 100% of the plague on trigger. And if you look here, the plague is basically just a portion of the enemy's max life, which is inflicted as pain. So it's like the poison from supported skills also had 100% of 100% damage per second to enemy as plague, up to a maximum of 20% max life, and then whatever is left on the enemy that explodes in at a radius of 1.8 meters. This then triggers this, and then this triggers this, and it kind of just ping pongs back and forth. And the cool thing about proliferation is that you think that only one poison spreads, but much like in Path of Exile 1, if there's a group of 10 enemies and they all die, and then there's one big enemy that's still living within the pack, if it's tanky, that means that 10 poisons have just transferred onto him. So that's why it's really good at clearing packs with maybe like a tanky rare and a lot of small monsters. So you'll notice that your damage goes crazy when in those scenarios. But if you are ever fighting a monster on its own, that's of course when you can't make use of this like sort of multiplicative damage that you gain from pack size. So yeah, this build really excels at big maps, basically. This is where my second most favorite thing about this build comes in, which is Relentless Pursuit. You guys know Temporal Chains and Chilled Ground. Bane of my existence in this video game. They're just awful. This basically makes it so that you're never slowed. Temp Chains doesn't affect you, Chilled Ground doesn't affect you, none of that stuff affects you. It's great. It's so good. It's really nice. You don't have to ever worry about that. You just put this on, you're just chilling. Our last ascendancy point is going to be 5 passive skills, and then here it just allows you to get additional poison onto the enemies, so it doubles the amount of poisons that you have. So imagine if I was to get every +1 poison on the target is going to add up to 2 instead. It's pretty much double damage, because poisons in Path of Exile 2 are capped, unlike Path of Exile 1, meaning that the 35% less poison duration as inverse effects on quality of life, as because like you'd have to actually like stack up the poisons more often to keep them up, But since you are capped, as long as you can attack enough times to stack up to your maximum poison, you're basically just at maximum DPS, meaning that the less duration isn't necessarily such a detriment to your damage as you'd think. However, there are other sort of reasons why this doesn't actually translate one-to-one. That's because there are duration multipliers baked into certain support gems, like on Poison Burst. But for the purpose of poisons, it's still just crazy amounts of damage. This is something that you're never going to be skipping, and here 5 passive skill points. Now, the third thing I like the most about this build is that you really get to use the Roa mount. The Roa mount is pretty good, as you guys know. It gives you 15% movement speed, and it also makes it so that you don't get micro stunned or whatever when monsters hit you, but you do have a stun bar that builds up over time. And when that stun bar builds up, you do get knocked off your Roa, right? One other thing is that currently Roa only reduces the slowing effect of attacking by 80%. Here, 80% reduced movement speed penalty from using skills while mounted, but we can actually like further reduce that by just grabbing this. So it's gonna be only 2% basically. So like 10% movement speed penalty is reduced here, and that's gonna allow us to go at 90% speed when we right click. Pretty good. And since we are using the Nova support, which is optional, of course, you can also use other supports if you prefer to have a higher damage dealing poison. That's totally fine. But since we are using that support, all you're really doing with this build is you're just holding right click and moving around with your little WSD. And yeah, the build just sort of plays itself, which is quite nice. You know, it's very PoE 1-esque, I suppose. But you'll find that in Path of Exile 2, builds do become even more outrageous than they do in Path of Exile 1 when it comes to like one button and one-shotting and all that kind of stuff in endgame. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But the coolest thing about the Roa, and disclaimer, this is a bug, if you spec into CI and you grab a little bit of stun threshold based off of your energy shield, this actually makes you immune from being knocked off of your Roa. So I'll demonstrate right now. I'm just putting in a low tier map, hoping that I don't die and lose XP here. But so first of all, let me unspec this node. Now I have 0 stun threshold based off of my energy shield. And when a monster hits me, you'll see that my stun bar here is going to go up and I get stunned. And the reason I get stunned so fast is because I have 0 stun threshold currently. I have basically none whatsoever. Since I am CI, and if I'm CI, that means that every attack is going to hit me because I have 1 life, since your stun threshold is actually based off of your life. You see that every monster that hits me is going to stun me. However, if I spec into just this 8%, and I jump on my Roa, and this has been a thing for a few patches now, you can see that all of a sudden I'm taking damage, but like, wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a minute. Why was the bar full? Okay, let me try go back in the map with the bar not being full. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. They didn't patch it overnight. Good. So you can see now that I'm not getting stunned. I'm basically, you know, in the middle of the monster. That was embarrassing. I'm in the middle of the monsters and I'm not getting stunned. I'm on my Roa. Now I'm stuck, but hey, you know, which sort of proves the theory of you not being able to be stunned, so long as you have a little bit of ailment threshold. So, stun threshold based off of your energy shield here, and chaos inoculation. Now the weird part is that like, if I actually take CI off, I can get stunned off my chicken again, but so that kind of forces me into CI with this build, because the quality of life of never being knocked off your Roa is just insane. It's just crazy. So yeah, that's something that I will never unspec until they bug fix it, of course. And up until this point, I was playing as hybrid life, and that variant is completely and utterly viable as well. In reality, you actually gain more damage, but you just lose the quality of life of not being knocked off, which does happen from time to time. And yeah, that's why I ended up going for Chaos Inoculation here. My current defenses aren't amazing. My gear can be a lot better, but I have about 13,000 evasion, which is about 56% chance to evade. And then I just have like 4,000 energy shield, which can go up to 5.4 if I was just to anoint this. But I haven't yet really like wanted to commit to my amulet yet, since my amulet is pretty whatever. It's pretty shit, to be honest. If you anoint this is going to get you like to 5.4. And then you obviously your ghost dance is relatively keeping you up. But one of the things that I like the least is the fact that since our evasion isn't as big as it used to be, Ghost Dance isn't doing as much as it used to do either, and Eternal Youth no longer works. Our recovery is entirely dependent on Ghost Dance. It does a pretty decent job. Like, it does a better job than running around with just Evasion Deflect 1.5k life, that's for sure, because, you know, we still have a decent amount of evasion, 60%. Other builds can get like 80% quite easily, but yeah, 60% with Ghost Dance and CI, it feels pretty good. Being immune to chaos damage is also pretty good. The thing that does suck is damage over time. If you ever get a Fireground map, or if you ever get, you know, those like fizz dots that they added to Abyss, that stuff sucks big time. But yeah. Now, talking about the tree and the choices here, Critical Strike ends up actually being pretty much Abyss for poisons, I believe, because you are sort of, in a way, able to fish for poisons. Critical Strike essentially allows you to fish for poisons on single target, and since those poisons are dealing so much more damage due to the multiplicative nature of crits, as well as the ability to get ailment magnitude from critical strikes, it's a pretty big boost for single target. However, for clear, it can be a little bit more inconsistent, but the idea is that you want to get your damage high enough to where it doesn't really matter whether you have inconsistencies. When you're going to shoot, monsters going to die. And then for single target, you just get a ton more damage by speccing into multi and all of those kind of things. One other benefit of being critical strike is that you get to use this time loss jewel here, which is accessible by, you know, you saw a jewel there, and then you get 5 notables, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can get some crazy stuff here. So what I have here is notables gain 5 critical strike chance, 9 critical strike damage, and magnitude of poisons you inflict. As well as damage while on active charm, but that's sort of whatever. And on rare jewels, you can get things like magnitude of damaging ailments you inflict on critical strikes. I've been trying to craft the perfect time loss jewel, but it's been really hard. But there are really good nodes, like for example, magnitude of the ailments you inflict from critical strikes, which is somewhere here, it must be. The notables in the skill radius also grant 10% magnitude of ailments you inflict from crits, and you can get that with critical strike bonus and whatever else. And yeah, good luck crafting these. It's pretty difficult. For your belt, since you guys are probably seeing like a headhunter on me, headhunter is genuinely not that good. It's really good only if you're doing breach and abyss, like as your farming strategy, but I highly recommend going for a darkness enthroned with the courtesan's Manan runes. This Manan rune thing is going to give you 64 magnitude of damaging ailments you inflict. But the downside for me right now is that I would have to somehow fix my dexterity. And the way that I would do that is, honestly, I would just probably skip out on a lot of intelligence and drop the level of my blasphemy and things like that. And yeah, just turn some of my nodes into dex instead. So that sort of fixes the dexterity. But the damage that you get from Headhunter is more like, of course, strictly only for mapping. And Darkness Enthroned is going to give you like a crazy amount of damage, like 50% more damage on single target, which is pretty huge. So yeah, Darkness Enthroned is actually best in slot, and Headhunter is best in slot for mapping. For the bow, you just want to get like as high physical damage as possible with critical strike chance. Attack speed is sort of whatever, since you are capped on how many poisons you have, but level of all attack skills is pretty good. Get as much damage, crit, and levels that you can get here as possible. And arrows is quality of life, but we are shooting a bunch of arrows already. Like, one less arrow here is not the end of the world, honestly. Not gonna be, you know, yeah, it's not gonna matter all that much. And then for the rest of the gear, on the helmet, I go for as much energy shield as possible. This is because it's gonna be fueling Subterfuge Mask, which gives you evasion rating based off of how much energy shield you have. So 2 evasion per 1 ES means this helmet is like 1060 ES, 1060 evasion, which is kind of insane. Like, we're really starving on evasion this patch since they merged acrobatics and evasion together. Getting as much as possible is like it's what you want. So on your body armor as well, that's why we use an evasion energy shield hybrid. It's kind of funny that like this here giving me, thanks to subterfuge mask, is giving me like more evasion ES than my chest. And my chest is like pretty decent. It's not amazing, but it's not bad either. But yeah, like evasion hybrid, really important because you are going to be getting spectral ward as well, which gives you 1 max ES per 12 evasion rating on your body armor. And that is sort of like how you build your base defenses, these two notables together, in combination with grabbing as much evasion energy shield as you can on the tree as well, to just prop that up to get your base defenses as high as possible. But those two pieces are very, very key. Other pieces where I get more ES and stuff is my gloves. Here I just opted in for pure energy shield gloves, but you don't necessarily have to go for pure ES. It could be hybrid evasion ES. It just depends on the values that you're looking for, how much energy shield, how much evasion you have, whether you're sort of incurring diminishing returns on your evasion, which around about 60%, it starts to get really hard to go up from there. That's sort of where you want to like maybe Wind Dancer or stuff like that to prop it up even more. But for example, for me, the difference with, I currently have 56% evasion, and if I was to turn on Wind Dancer, that puts me at like something like 62. So for a 30% spirit, it's something that I actually ended up dropping. Pretty much, it's just because we're just getting to diminishing returns on evasion, so bumping up my energy shield pool is just better, which again, I should definitely know in Patient Barrier. For the boots, you just want movement speed. Obviously, like getting those insane socketed rune gloves and boots would be ideal here. Those are my next two upgrades. So you can get socketed runes here, and you can put these runes in here for like crazy amounts of magnitude. So that would be like 60 magnitude of poisons on a 2-socket socketed rune. And then on the boots, you would do double movement speed with 100% increased effect of socketed rune, making your boots into like 50% MS, right? So 50, yeah, 30 usually prefix, yeah. So 50% MS and a bunch of other stats, and you just want either hybrid evasion energy shield base here or just energy shield. Definitely want ES on every piece if possible. The quiver is a bit of a weird one. This is a really crazy item. Sort of a quiver that if we had this in Path of Exile 1, we'd use this on every single build. It has a weird effect in that it chooses randomly one of these effects every time you shoot. And what these effects do is pretty crazy. So Crescendo makes you chain 6 additional times, and it increases the damage for each remaining chain, or each time they've chained rather. So as you're shooting it back, it chains 6 times, increasing your clear a lot and increasing their damage, and those poisons will then be proliferated. This one's splintering. Every time an arrow hits a monster, it triggers a split, meaning it's like it basically splinters out 6 targets, which is pretty crazy as well. It's basically like the effect of Sniper's Mark in PoE 1 on every arrow. And this one is going to be Nimbus, so your projectiles pierce all targets and then they return to you. It's not as good as all the others, but it's still pretty insane. Diamond one, this one is the most insane one for us, and is part of the reason why crit is also so OP on this build. All hits are crits, and then you get 60% increased critical damage bonus. Like, that's a lot of damage. Covetous is pretty cool too. Covetous gives you 600% increased item rarity from monsters killed when it rolls that. And this one is sort of like the shit one, 600% increased stun buildup. It's sort of there to make the quiver more shit, basically, the blunt one. But all of the other ones are just insane. So it makes this quiver really fun and really powerful. But getting a rare with gem levels as well as flat physical damage and all that kind of stuff is probably better for consistency, but I find this quiver to just be really fun. For your rings, you're just looking for resistances, rarity, energy shield, life, as well as getting flat physical damage. Flat physical damage is really important. You want as much physical damage as possible everywhere because you are currently only scaling with physical damage. There are variants of this build that can also stack elemental damage, and for that you would need to use a certain pair of gloves, which I forget the name, but let me get it up on screen. That's these ones here, the Plague Finders. These are really good, honestly. Like, I might consider trying a variant with these gloves just to check whether it's better or not. But yeah, All damage from hits contributes to poison magnitude. This is crazy. I really wish we had this in PoE 1. Like, honestly, if we had gloves in PoE 1 that allowed us to poison with all damage, I would be very happy. But yeah, Plague Finders, all damage poisons, and it would allow you to run like Elemental Bow or anything like that. Now, there's also people that are running different setups, right? Like, there's all kinds of different stuff that you can do with Poison Burst, but so far for me, this has been sort of what I've settled on, what I find to be really good. So for my second ring, I actually just have pretty much the same. I went for 1 leech damage roll. It doesn't really do all that much because our hit damage is actually not super high. So the leech is okay, but it's better than nothing. So I have that leech there, and I have to change that resistance to something else since I am now CI. I made the CI swap just yesterday, so and that pretty much sums up all of the gear. For the life flask and stuff, I just go for increased recovery rate and charges on both. Here, I like to get a... This is if you're hybrid, you definitely want a immune to bleed. If you're CI, it doesn't really matter, since obviously you can't bleed. Then you go for a freeze charm. And Forsaken Bagel is completely useless now that I'm CI as well. You can see that I'm sort of in between builds and testing stuff. I will change the charms here, but it's really doesn't really matter all that much. Like, if you can get golden charms, rarity stuff, any of that kind of stuff is advantageous here. You don't need a stun charm since you're immune to stun from the Roa. So you could go for an ignite charm. Ignites are really annoying on this build. It could be a freeze, ignite, and potentially a rarity charm. That would be the best 3 that I can think off the top of my head, and that's what I would grab there. That pretty much sums up all the gear, and I will take a look at my gems right now. There's a lot of things that you can change here. By the way, I was testing the critic concoction thing that people are doing on single target. I think you need to have like kind of a specific setup for that, because for me it felt super inconsistent. It wasn't very good at all, but people are doing some crazy stuff with the critic concoction. So if you want to have like a crazy bosser, maybe look into that. There's some stuff on Reddit. But for my Poison Burst, I'm putting that on weapon set 2. It's important to put this on weapon set 2 because it uses Rigwald's Ferocity, which gives 30% more damage if you use it in weapon set 2. It does give 10% less attack speed, but that doesn't really matter. The 10% less attack speed, like you're just basically shooting all the time and things are proliferating, so it doesn't feel bad at all. So make sure you're putting that in weapon set 2. I use pinpoint crit for more consistency now. This is kind of goes against like the whole fishing for crits thing, but for AoE, for clear, it feels really good to have more crit consistency, so having that there is pretty good. Deadly poisons also is just mandatory. You just need deadly poisons. It's just 100% more magnitude. This is a more multiplier to your increases that I was talking about earlier, so here increases and all that sort of stuff. More magnitude will basically just multiply that. Mandatory. Here I got Nova projectiles. It's up to you whether you want to use Nova projectiles or the ladder, which is I call it LMP, but it's obviously not LMP in this game. It is called multi-shot. I wish they didn't just rename every support, bro. Like, I feel like the iconic names of Pathfinder 1 could have just stayed. So yeah, if you go for multi-shot, you have more control over where you're shooting. You have less arrows. You have 2 less, but you have a lot more control over where your damage goes, which is really good in maps that are more so, for example, less open and narrow, have corridors and stuff like that. The upside of Nova projectiles is like if you're running something like Breach or Abyss, it's pretty crazy, especially for Breach, right? You open it up and you just have 360 clear. Never have to like aim or worry about nothing. So that's why I use Nova. And finally, Bursting Plague, mandatory as well. Bursting Plague is so OP. It does so much damage to enemies near the target, and yeah, it's pretty much mandatory. I use Toxic Growth. I got Arakali's Lust here. You could put Arakali's Lust into your Poison Burst as well, but I put it in Toxic Growth. And all this is really doing is applying more damage per poison on the target, and you're gonna have I believe 10 poisons on the target, because my cap I believe it's 10, and that means that you're basically just capping out on this Arakali's Rust for 30% more damage. I got Long Fuse, which deals 35% more damage. The downside with Long Fuse is that it takes more time for them to pop. You can see they're like basically never popping. They get 35 more damage as the upside though, but the thing about this skill is that you don't wait for them to pop, you pop them yourself, right? So this is like upside, no downside, essentially. Your single target is essentially you just going like this, then shooting on top, like this, and then shooting on top, like this, and shooting on top, and then just having like vine arrow on the floor as well. And also I shoot rain of arrows because my rain of arrows is applying a little bit of wither. So just keeping up those two things, it's gonna be pretty, give you a big single target damage boost. Deadly poison as well. I put blindside here for more critical damage bonus against blinded enemies, and yeah, we're blinding enemies with the tree, so that's just gonna be more critical damage bonus, giving us more damage. Conk effect is needed because it keeps the pods all sort of close together. Without conk effect, they would sort of be too spread out for you to efficiently apply the poisons. As you can see, like the overlaps are just no longer there. So conk effect doesn't actually give more damage, but what it does is it gives better coverage. Or not coverage, but like better multi-hit, I guess. Vine arrow is pretty cool, like it just extra little bit of damage, but I got prolonged duration, overabundance, stoicism. You know, since you're on Roa, you're basically you're always getting 20%. Magnified area, so you just have it applies to a bigger area, the poisons that they sort of like emanate from it. Mechanic of this is really weird, honestly. It's basically every time you hit it, it applies a percentage of the poison that you apply to the flower to near targets. I believe that's how it works. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then Swift Affliction, because it has less duration, but essentially this just doesn't have a duration, right? So it's just an upside. It's just more non-ailment damage over time. Since the poison that it applies is not actually like duration based, it's more just like a portion of the poison that you apply to it applied instantly. So it's just more damage basically. A raw amount, I got loyalty. This here makes me take 10% of the damage that I would take, gives it to the raw. Plus 1 minion. I don't even think that does anything. Elemental army to give it res. Again, doesn't really do anything because I got Brutus Brain on there, which makes it so that he's immune. But Rain of Arrows here, the only purpose of Rain of Arrows is for Withering Touch, but since it does not deal chaos damage innately, you have to give it Chaos Attunement, which makes it gain 25% chaos as extra. So yeah, we're using Withering Touch here to wither enemies. And then I just got like Poison, Efficacy, and Calling Strike. There's like increasing the duration doesn't do anything since it just rains X amount of arrows. So yeah, just less cost and a bit of a Calling Strike. It's pretty good. I'm not really sold on Blasphemy at the moment. So the thing here is either you self-cast Despair on single target and you use Wind Dancer, or use Blasphemy. And yeah, so I currently use Blasphemy, and I put Despair in there with Ritualistic Curse, Focus Curse, and Magnified Area to curse enemies near me. Then I got Withering Presence to apply Wither every 1.5 seconds, and we have that with prolonged duration so that the withers last a little bit longer on the target. And finally, Ghost Dance with compressed duration to essentially give us our energy shield back when we are hit. And that sums up all the gems, the mechanics, the gear, and everything you need to know about the build. And I'm just gonna maybe think about some things that I might have forgotten, but I believe that it's pretty much it, and that is pretty much everything that you need to do to get this build started and get it up off the ground. For leveling, I never leveled this poison myself. I have heard many people that have leveled this poison. It's pretty decent. The way that I would probably go about that right now is I would buy a Widow Hail and just keep upgrading my quiver to have like physical damage and levels and stuff like that, and go through the campaign that way. So just get as much physical damage as you can on your quiver with a Widow Hail, or just get a bow and keep upgrading it. You could also grab like Snake Bites for leveling, since I believe those are pretty low level. I guess like these require level 4 as well, the Plague Flyers. So you could just like grab these for leveling and just use any sort of elemental damage skill, even like you could even go Lightning Arrow and level with these and just be a poison based Lightning Arrow build. Totally up to you. I will not really cover the leveling too much as I'll cover the endgame variant of things, but that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you found this video useful, and I hope this inspired you to maybe give this build a go, because I'm just gonna put this back on screen. I think the build is like pretty pretty fun. It's really, really good clear. I can do bosses, you know, it doesn't have the craziest single target, but the benefit of it is just how cozy it is, you know, like you like playing this on controller is great. If you're a console Andy, bro, like you're gonna love this build. As a PC Andy as well, like you don't really have to do much. WSD your way through and hold right click down and things just die. And that's pretty much it. All right. I said that's pretty much it like 5 times, but I was sort of trying to remember things that I might have forgotten. I am going off the top of my head here, but all right, boys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully they don't fucking delay PoE 1. Peace.